Welcome back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories, where I go with them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today I'm going to do a story titled, Do I Tell My Husband About Something That Happened 12 Years Ago? An Affair, Pastoral Misconduct. Before we renew our vows on our 20th anniversary, or keep it in the past because it's complicated and confusing and we are happy right now. And a shout out to Pedro for sending in this story. And guys, like the title said, and it was very long, is about a wife who's been married almost 20 years, and she and her husband about to renew the vows, and she's starting to feel guilty about something she did 10 to 12 years ago. And what was it? She was having a full-blown affair with her church pastor. You're going to see in this story that her husband, according to her, this is her version of it, had a major drinking problem, probably labeled him as an alcoholic, and I would say things were stressful and difficult, and led her to escape by having relations with her pastor. And here we are now, and she's wondering whether she should tell him before she should renew the vows. Feeling kind of guilty. And that'll be entertaining when I go over here, guys. You're going to see, well, number one, because it's a crazy story, which is why I'm doing it here. We all like them. And two, you're going to see a lot of the woe is me in here, the lack of accountability, because she's going to overwhelmingly blame the pastor for all this, which, of course, he is to blame because he's the pastor. He's obviously taking advantage of her, but guess what? She's no saint either. And blaming her husband because he's an alcoholic, but little as blame as possible on her for knowingly cheating on him and keeping it quiet for more than a decade, and with the church pastor. Anyhow, guys, so starts off, says, by the way, come check me out in the men's community over on Patreon or Locals. You can come over there and check it out, become a free member or a paying supporter, and get all the good stuff. You get to chat with me and all the other guys over there in a censorship-free environment. So definitely come check it out, and a shout out to all the guys that have come over and joined. And I'll post a link at the top of the description. Okay, on to her BS story. She says, my husband, a 48-year-old male, and I, 44, are celebrating our 19th wedding anniversary this year, and we are planning to have a big celebration and vow renewal next year for our 20th. We both find it meaningful that after 20 years, we would still choose each other and do it all over again. Little does her husband know. But this milestone is bringing up a lot of guilt and shame that I have about an experience from 12 years ago, and is making me wonder if I need to tell him about it, or is it better to stay in the past. Notice she said experience, not experiences, because it wasn't just a one-time thing that she's made a mistake. I'm so sorry about this. Was a lot of experiences. 12 years ago, our marriage looked very different. We had 3 kids under 3 years of age, and he was abusing alcohol. He wouldn't drink every day, but when he did drink at bars and not home, he would have too much, stay out indefinitely without communicating, and often drive home drunk. Well, that ain't good. Absolutely not, especially given that he has kids, and driving drunk is terrible, and he should definitely have gotten some kind of something happened to him, by the law. This would happen a few times each week, which meant that a few times each week I'd be handling the dinner, bath, bedroom routine for the 3 babies. I would not know where he was or what he was doing or when he was coming home, and that he'd be making very unsafe choices, like driving. Although it was a source of conflict, I felt I had very little power to do anything about it since I wasn't working at the time, and he wasn't willing or able to view it as a problem. Come on here, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, believe me, she had power. If he was working and she wasn't working, she could have divorced him if she wanted to, and believe me, he'd be paying out the butt with alimony and child support and all that. The courts were on her side. Now, I don't know. If he wasn't drinking every day, I don't know if she could label him an alcoholic. We could probably debate that, guys. But it didn't sound like he just liked drinking. He was irresponsible, not so much an alcoholic, After one especially traumatic weekend where he admitted he hit a parked car and was so drunk he didn't know where he was when he did it, I turned to our pastor for help. Okay, maybe he is an alcoholic. The guy is, at the very least, an irresponsible jackass. So she went to the pastor. I considered him a friend, as he had kids around our same age, and our families would often get together to hang out and play and let the kids play. So on Sunday morning, I told him that things were not okay in my marriage and I needed help. He and I met the next day for coffee, and I told him everything that has been going on. He was the first person I'd ever told. He was supportive and validating. Keyword validating. Now here's the thing. Let me time out here. Stop here. She's a churchgoer, she's religious, and the pastor is there to help on all sorts of fronts, as many are. And so I got no problem with her going to the pastor, as a lot of people do, and had a history of doing so. And a lot of times you talk about things in confidence, but what happens next? No. He gave me referrals to counselors and said he would try to reach out to my husband as a way of offering support to him. Things got better for a while, but eventually we returned to the old patterns. The pastor would keep checking on me, and over the time, the texts got increasingly familiar, then flirty, then sexual. Yeah. Pastor's now a pastor asshole. No, not good. Absolutely. This guy is abusing his position, all sorts of things. He's a freaking lowlife. But her continuing on with this, then it becomes on her. I was completely matching his energy. Ding, ding, ding. I thought it felt amazing to have someone actually connecting with me and finding me attractive while my husband didn't even choose to come home. I still, guys, after doing this for so long and living so long, have to question, her information about her husband. Is it possible it was as bad as she described? Possible. But given her actions here, I have to really question if it was as bad, because a lot of times they're very much exaggerated. Obviously, I knew it was wrong, but there was a part of me that felt I had earned a little bit of wrong after tolerating all my husband's wrong for so long. No. If it was that bad, then she could have certainly ended it with him. If it was really that bad, he was an alcoholic and putting him in danger, the kids in danger and all that, believe me, the courts have been on her side, not her effing the pastor. This wasn't some romance. Neither of us were confessing deep feelings for each other or considering leaving our partners. Harmless fun, or so I justified to myself. Harmless fun, my ASS lady. The shepherd has turned into a wolf. Of course, things didn't stay harmless. The dynamic with the pastor became confusing and hurtful to me. After crossing a boundary, with words, nothing physical yet, he would withdraw, shut me out, and seem angry with me. But then he would re-engage later, and the cycle, totally initiated and controlled by him, would continue. I found myself now feeling rejection and withdrawal from two men, and with both I was stuck in a cycle that I had no control over. Bullshit. She had control over it. I don't know what was going on with him. Maybe he was intentionally playing mind games, the whole push-pull thing that draws women in. He probably had other members of the flock that he was having relations with. There's no way I believe that she was the only one, but still. She is guilty of things too. I was emotionally in a very bad place and felt confused by my own feelings and actions. What's confusing about cheating on your husband and your family and hooking up with a pastor? Eventually, when the pastor would come back after telling me we couldn't have any more contact, he started pushing physical boundaries. He kissed me once in the church elevator. He would sneak his hands on me when I was around him. I was very active in the church, so there was plenty of access. Oh, and there was plenty of access on her. Each transgression was welcomed by me, ding, 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 then followed by him shunning me because it wasn't appropriate. Well, maybe it's possible he was back and forth on the issue, like, I shouldn't be doing this. Then he was roped back in. We don't know the full story. He's a scumbag, don't get me wrong, but we don't know the whole story. After a church meeting, we had you-know-what in his church office. Holy crap. The next day, I guess that was his version of the blessing, The next day, he was so full of contempt for me that I thought I might not be able to set foot in the church again. There was never any physical contact again after that point, and there were several months where he didn't acknowledge my existence, and I tried to remove myself from the life of the church because he said he couldn't control himself. So I lost that support system as well. I stopped taking communion because I didn't want to take bread from him, and I didn't feel deserving of grace anyway. Drama. Even after all that, he would still return and check my boundaries over text from time to time over the next couple of years. I was still receptive and still hurt when it was followed by rejection and withdrawal. I think this woman likes drama. What do you think? I think she's drawn to a certain type of guy. Eventually, I begged him to stop and told him how the cycle of interest and rejection was tearing me apart, but I didn't feel like I had the strength to hold a boundary with him. He said he would stop, which he did not. I subconsciously found another solution. I gained a lot of weight. Then he was no longer interested and the cycle broke. Okay, hit like big girls. Could have found a different way to end the cycle instead of putting on a ton of weight and putting your health in jeopardy. It took a lot of time in therapy to see this as an abuse of power on his part rather than a straightforward affair. Yes, it was an abuse of power on his part, if what she's describing is 100% accurate. Well, even if it wasn't accurate, he was hooking up with a member of the congregation. So yeah, it was abuse, and he was a scumbag. But she's not innocent either. Come on here. I was and still am resistant to the idea that this is more complicated than two adults making bad decisions. Everybody says it's complicated. It's not complicated. Come on here. I don't want to appear like I'm trying to abdicate my role and responsibility. What happened? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. But I also have to come to learn that those kinds of feelings are not common in a counseling relationship and times of vulnerability, and that is his job to maintain professional conduct. Well, I agree with that. As you can see, I still struggle with how to make sense of all this, and I'm still confused and horrified by my actions. You're a grown-ass woman in your 40s and late 40s now. Take responsibility. Since this time, the pastor is no longer a pastor. He surrendered his ordination and is working in another field. And we have not had any contact with each other since he left the church many years ago. After a rock bottom, my husband is sober and has been almost 9 years. Well, that's great for the husband. Okay, obviously he was an alcoholic. Great. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the wife is with Pastor A-hole. And husband, after all these years, has no idea. I'm working to lose the weight and trying to feel safe at my church again. I've never engaged in S-word or inappropriate behavior with anybody outside the marriage before or after the experience. My husband and I are happy and enjoying rediscovering how much we genuinely like each other as our kids are getting more independent and we have more time to spend together. I've never told him about any part of what happened. Notice that he's still with her even after she said she put on a lot of weight. Now, I don't know what a lot of weight means. Could it be 50 pounds, 100 pounds, 200 pounds? I don't know. Obviously enough to turn away Pastor A-hole, you know? Which brings me back to today. The idea of renewing vows is making me feel like it's deceitful to accept his recommitment to me without knowing what I did. Like he deserves to know the full truth of this time period before deciding whether or not to choose me again. Well, she should tell him. He has the right to know. And the odds are he's going to boot her out. I'd recommend that. Doing the pastor, for heaven's sake. Of course, the other part of my brain is saying that we have fought so hard to reconnect and repair the marriage, and I don't want to blow it up over something that happened more than a decade ago. No. There isn't a statute of limitations on this, honey. This isn't Law and Order. And took place in a context that was very complicated and possibly exploitative. But although I now feel it was an abuse of power, I was still active participant, and I fear that anything I say that makes it sound like I was taken advantage of will feel like I'm defending it or making excuses. She was taken advantage of, I agree, but also she was a big girl and knew what she was doing. And it wasn't just like a one-time incident. This went on for years, obviously. We don't talk much about this time in our marriage because it was a dark time and we worked very hard to come back from it. I sort of boxed up his drinking and his pastor and put it on a shelf of bad decisions from the past we no longer engage in. Is it better or worse to keep it there? I have no idea how he would react, and whatever reaction he has, including divorcing me, would be valid. But I also don't want this effing pastor to take another thing from me. Again, back to the pastor. Yeah, the pastor's a jerk. And he's no longer a pastor. And I am sure she wasn't the first member of the flock that he was, having fun with his rod. But don't put this all on him. This is also on you, honey. So I told you guys about the jokes about women and accountability here. Should she tell him? He has a right to know. Will he probably get rid of her? Probably. But that's his choice. But if she's truly sorry, she'll tell him, Maybe he'll forgive her. I don't know. Maybe she's never done anything since then. I don't know, maybe because she was too big. Those guys were interested. But there you go, guys. And so, as you can imagine, the comment section is full of people. There are a lot of people saying don't say anything, which is despicable. But a lot of people say otherwise, and I'll read a few. One guy says, I hear plenty of blame on your husband for your actions, but no accountability. You cheated because you liked the attention. It was your choice to break your vows. Renewing your vows now is meaningless unless you confess and be honest with your husband. I agree. Another one says, you are trying very, very, very hard to make your husband's drinking problem the absolute cause of your physical and emotional affair with your pastor. It is not. You say the pastor had a responsibility to maintain professional conduct, and that is true. But in the same breath, you say you've learned it's not uncommon to have feelings toward a counselor in a time of vulnerability. This is not true, at least not in the sense that you are trying to lead others to believe. The simple truth is that your husband was making very bad choices and actively ruining your marriage, and you simultaneously pursued engaging in a physical and emotional affair with an even worse man. Right? Two wrongs don't make a right. Not only that, but you desired him so much that you lost any ability to maintain any boundaries with him. You paint yourself as helpless to his abuse, but this was not the case. Tell your husband and allow him to view you for who you are and what you are, and make the choice of how he wants to move forward and spend the rest of his life for himself. There you go. There's more comments, but at this point, you all get the point. So, guys, there you go. I'd like to hear your opinions on this whole thing. I can only imagine there. But again, the old joke about the gals and accountability, but doing the pastor. I've done a few stories like this, but they're not very common. This is why you just never know. Better your wife is not alone with any man, frankly. Once she's married, no. But it's a shame. But the good thing is that guy's no longer a pastor. But I'd love to know what his new career is. Maybe he's a counselor. I can only imagine that one. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. If you like the video, share it with your friends and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.